Can you believe what you have been seeing on CNN today, ladies and gentlemen? Can you believe it? Supposedly, a CNN reporter found Osama bin Laden, took a television camera crew with him, went into Osama bin Laden's hideout, interviewed him and his top leadership, his top lieutenants and colonels and generals in their hideout. This is a CNN reporter with a camera crew. And he came out and told everybody, within 3 weeks, Osama bin Laden is going to attack the United States and Israel. Now, don't you think that's kind of strange, folks? You see, because the largest intelligence apparatus in the world, with the biggest budget in the history of the world, has been looking for Osama bin Laden for years and years and years, and can't find him. The FBI also, under the leadership of Louis Freeh, has been looking for Osama bin Laden for years and years and years and years and years and many years, and can't find him. Some doofus jerk-off reporter with a camera crew bosses right into his hideout and interviews him. Now, that tells us two things. Either everyone in the intelligence community and all of the intelligence agencies of the United States government are blithering idiots and incompetent fools, including the entire apparatus of the FBI and all of their personnel, or they're lying to us. They're not looking for him at all. And the second is the truth. You see, the CIA created Osama bin Laden. And whatever is going to happen that they're going to blame on Osama bin Laden, don't you even believe it.
This is a 110-story skyscraper. This is the top 15 story. Do you see how the 95 stories below are supporting the 15 stories above? Okay, now, here I have an identical 15-story section of the skyscraper. Same structure, same mass, but nothing below it. And I want you to see something very interesting. If you drop these at the same time, according to the official story, this one will reach the ground at the same time as this one, essentially in freefall, as they put it. One has nothing below it. The other has 90,000 tons of structural steel supporting it. Check it out. This one obviously can't reach the ground at the same time as this one. Now check this out. Do you see the top 15 stories crushing the 95 stories below? No, you don't. The top block disintegrates by itself in the first few seconds without even impacting the building below. And then the building below begins to destroy itself. What you see are waves of explosions ripping the building apart, pulverizing nearly all the concrete to a fine powder, and ejecting the steel up to 600 feet in all directions. The top 15 stories couldn't do that in a pancaking collapse, and they certainly couldn't reach the ground anywhere near as quickly as this one, which has nothing but air below it.
Get down below and you'd see molten steel running down the channel rails, like you're in a foundry.
Yeah, like lava in the volcano.
Why is it that when you ask questions about 9/11, it's out of bounds? Well, I got news for you. When I was going through underwater demolition SEAL training, when I got to the demolition phase, I had a chief warrant officer who taught me that there is no dumb question. That if you don't understand something, you are not out of line for asking a question. And I think that when you ask that question, you have every right and deserve to get an honest answer. Well, here's my question that I want you all to, two questions I want you to think about today. Number one, why has the United States Department of Justice not charged Osama bin Laden for 9/11. Now, they charged him when he blew up our embassy in Africa in '98. Why the biggest terrorism act in history have they failed to officially charge him for? Why have they not convened a grand jury, presented their evidence, and got an indictment? Second, go to the internet and go to the FBI website and go to their international list of top 10 terrorists. You will see bin Laden there. Bring his name up and his picture. Amazingly, all the charges, the embassy of '98 and all this other stuff is all listed. But ironically, nothing on 9/11. Nothing. Now, when the FBI was pressed as to why 9/11 wasn't included, their response was, we don't have enough evidence. Now, people, if you're like me, that is extremely disturbing. We've fought 2 wars, we've changed our entire foreign policy, and we've had the Patriot Act put on us, all supposedly because of Osama bin Laden.
The buildings actually accelerated as they came down, meaning they were not getting resistance from these massive columns in the center of the core of this building. The core of this building was very heavy. Huge columns, huge.
This block accelerates straight down. Now, there's this picking up speed downward continually. It doesn't slow down, it just continues to gain speed. It accelerates the entire time. And that was what was extremely significant. This structure was capable of holding 3 to 5 times the weight. And here it is falling through it with the resistance of only 1/3 of its weight. Roughly 90% of the resistance has been removed. And what's happening is the top section is not crushing down the lower section like a pile driver, which is the picture that NIST basically is painting. It's actually falling into material that's already been pulverized, that's offering very little resistance. It's just coming down through pre-pulverized material.
Structural connections not only had to fail nearly simultaneously, but in sequential order.
You stood there and watched it destroy itself, wiping out floor by floor all 287 structural columns as if they didn't exist underneath the damage zone.
Let's take a look at some of the key characteristics of controlled demolition. First, we have a sudden onset of destruction at the base of the structure. We have straight down symmetrical collapse into its own footprint, because demolition waves remove the column support, resulting in a free fall speed virtually through the path of what was the greatest resistance, thousands of tons of structural steel. We have a total dismemberment of the steel structure, so it's loaded and ready for shipment. We have minimal damage to adjacent structures, sounds and flashes of explosions heard and seen by witnesses, enormous clouds of pulverized concrete, squibs sometimes, explosive charges that go off at the wrong time, chemical evidence of cutter charges. These are all fairly typical, and they go to show us direct evidence of explosive destruction. Now, the interesting thing is that not one of these typical characteristics of controlled demolition can be explained or accounted for by fire, let alone all 10 of them. Typically, we'll have government documentation, expert corroboration, foreknowledge, and video documentation, all of which supports the hypothesis of controlled demolition, providing proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
The biggest two lies are 9/11 and the moon landing, because they're designed for this. There's other lies, there's other narratives, but these two are two of the things they're government miracles. And when you say, okay, none of it makes logical sense, none of it fits in the rules of my life my physical reality, my spiritual reality, my emotional reality, my familial reality, all my friends, everything I've ever seen and done in my life, I will put that all aside to believe you. As soon as you do that, that person owns your mind. 19 people from the sands of Saudi Arabia just hated your freedom. So they went to Hollywood, Florida, and learned how to fly a propeller little plane. Then they went to Staples and got box cutters. Then they took over jumbo jets with the box cutters, flew the jumbo jets perfectly into the side of a building with a steel frame, and that building just fell. And then building 7 next to it also fell because of a random fire. And then now we're going to go to war for the next 20 years. If you believe that, you'll believe anything. If you believe that this is what mind control is, it was in Star Trek and 1984. It's like, look at the lights. There are 4 lights. And the torturers are saying, it's 3 lights. And they're like, it's 4 lights. And then, zzz, ah! There are 4 lights. It's 3 lights. And then they start wincing when you bring the electricity. Okay, it's 3 lights. You're now owned. Because you've given up your word. You've given up your ability to say, and they'll just keep doing that over and over again until you look to them. Am I right? It's called grooming. What's the right answer? What's the right answer? And then they make you love them because breaking a person is not enough. But here's where I get off the train. Who did it and why? I don't know. That's another act of will. Oh, well, the military-industrial complex benefited from it. Oh, the dancing Israelis. Oh, Benjamin Netanyahu said that they benefit. I don't know who did 9/11, and I don't know why. Because I don't. And I can't pretend I do. Because it's rabbit hole to rabbit hole. That's the next trap. The first trap is believe nonsense. Okay, now once you've established that it is nonsense, the next trap is tell me why and who did it and make a claim. And when we keep proving you wrong and you readjust, it's not Cheney, it's Israel, It's not Israel, it's the black nobility. It's not the black nobility, it's Satan himself. It's the Tesla. Want to know the next act of power? I don't know. I don't know who did it or why. I just know it was theater. Now I'm going to go back to making kids and milking goats. And that, my friends, is how you get out of mind control. Whoever didn't show up that day, you just do not understand. I'll try and explain it better. Okay, there's a pyramid of control. So Cheney and Bush, they obviously knew. They had to. And their little appetite benefit would be cranking the war machine, selling more bombs. And they're like, all right, okay, yes. And George Bush's brother was the head of security for the buildings. That you can't make this shit up. The Pentagon was 100% compliant in it. 100%. It's obvious on a million levels. So then you go to the next level. Larry Silverstein owns it. He takes out terrorism insurance that year, doesn't show up, neither of his kids show up. Most of the Jews in the building do not show up for work that day. Wow, lucky Larry Silverstein. He did a little bit of Jewish lightning, profited in the billions, right? That's just another layer. Then you go to who wants us in war? You got Benjamin Netanyahu. That's just another layer. Guys, if you've seen it in a YouTube video, it's probably not the end of the story. So why would you settle on the next rung? Guys, there were police and fire chiefs and stuff involved in that. How do you think you needed so much compliance with so many secret societies to make that thing go down that you can pretty much pick and condemn. But guess what? Vengeance is the Lord's. Why? Because we can't figure it out. All we can do is live a good life.